This is the Good Girl Podcast. I am Cameo King, your host. And wait, y'all, wait. Before I continue, what level is y'all volume at? Because sometimes, your girl can get really loud, and I don't want y'all to be like, Cameo, why are you so loud? So you ready? Did you adjust your volume? Y'all ready? Right. I could have did the whole thing. We're at the car wash. Anyway, this is the Good Girl Podcast, a podcast that is redefining the good through uncomfortable truths. I call those confessions. So every week we have someone on with a confession, and y'all, we back. This is the 2021 Good Girl Podcast season opener for the fall. Is you ready? Because I'm ready. No, wait. How does it go? It's we ready. That ain't the beat. That ain't the beat. I promise y'all I got rhythm. We ready for ya. It just take me a minute to catch up. I swear I gotta be. Anyway, welcome back. Welcome back. I missed y'all. I missed the mic. I missed the conversations, but mostly I missed the confessions. And I will say this until the cows come home. If you want to live your best life, confessions are the way. Many of us are slaves to ideologies, to ways of life, to lifestyles, to identities that God did not call us to. And they have us in bondage, and we will not live this thing called life in the best way if we are not honest and confess the uncomfortable truths about ourselves, right? So this is why we are here. This is why I am here, primarily because I was so committed to being a good girl. Can y'all hear the air quotes? Good girl. It's like this image of good and what others defined as good and as right. And I missed a lot. So I hope y'all ready for the season because I am raising the bar. Are you following us on Instagram? On IG? Before I get into this confession, are you following us on IG? I promise I'm fun on IG. Our IG is at the Good Girl Podcast, and just spelled like it is, spelled correctly, I guess. And you'll definitely see a different side of me, or maybe you get the same side of me. This past week, I was rapping. I was rapping. Y'all heard some lyrics. I think I said 7th grade on Instagram, but I really think that was high school, Cameo. But I still have some other lines that I've pinned. I don't know if y'all ready now. I actually may pick up the pen again and write some. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not. That was not my thing in high school. I just did a little couple. But anyway, another way you can stay connected to the Good Girl Podcast is you can get a text. Again, I told y'all we raising the bar. You can get a text when the show comes out. So if you just drop your little number in there, we'll send you a text and be like, yo, the show is up. Holla at your girl. The show is up. And it'll come right to your phone. And so a little bit about this season, I'm doing something a little bit different, a tiny bit different. I'm going to try to do series, right? Where we have groups of confessions around the same topic. So, I'm going to go with married couples. Woohoo! I already know a few. And baby, if you're not ready to get free, this show may not be for you. But, I got a few. And then we're going to do a health series. Yeah, that health series is going to be good too. So also, as always, send in your questions, your comments, your confessions, or things that you want us to talk about. You can easily DM me. You can also, as always, go to that link in our bio and you can submit a question and we will try our best. I will try my best to include it in the production of the show. What questions do you have for health professionals, right? What questions, I'm going to be real straightforward with you. What questions do you have about your vagina, right? What are some things that you and your friends talk about, right? And this show isn't just for women. I think men are evolving when they hear women-centered things, because if you are connected to a woman who has a vagina, if you're connected to a woman, then a person who has a vagina, then you need to know some of these things, right? You may end up loving a woman with a vagina. You may have a daughter. So all these things that matter. Anyway, let's get to the heart of why we're here. And so this again is a season opener, and I love to set the tone for the season and do what I'm asking other folks to do. And I do this intentionally because I'll never forget. I was working with my nonprofit, Grit, Glam, and Guts. I don't know if you guys know, but I have a nonprofit. Been doing that work for 9 years now. It'll be 10 years next year. Woohoo! A decade. But we work with girls ages 12 to 17, and we focus on raising your self-awareness, raising your self-identity, as well as recognizing and engaging in the power of your voice. And so we do everything from like after school programs. We've had conferences at Michigan State University. We've had residential camps where girls have stayed the week on MSU's campus and taking collegiate level courses, everything from self-expression, art. So all these things, service learning projects, just great stuff that builds the character, that is central to the character of a teen girl, but also as women. So anyway, I'll never forget this. I was working with my nonprofit. It was at a school here in Lansing, and we typically have conversations about ourselves, about life, and about things that are happening, I'll say, in popular culture. And the conversation is typically free flowing, like easygoing, because we've established trust. We have, we have a relationship. But this one time I was asking the girls to talk about their fears, talk about something you're afraid of right now. And y'all just felt like it was a stopgap, like somebody just put a plug over the vibe and the flow we had going. And I didn't understand. And I kept pushing like pushing and prodding and saying, let's do it this way. Nobody wanted to talk. And so I felt this prompting in my spirit and say, you share, Cameo, you share first. I said, okay, I'll share one of my fears. And I said, well, let me share something when I was 16. And that I was afraid of. And when I tell you, I heard the Holy Spirit loud and clear. It was like, no, you share something right now at age, I think I was 32. At age 32, what are you afraid of? And I said, ooh, child, this different. But then that's when I kind of got the revelation. Like, you can't ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do, because then you don't understand really the pressure and what it feels like. So I incorporate this into all of my practices and everything that I do. So here we go, right? I have to put myself, I don't want to say on the chopping block, but I have to confess just as consistently as I ask you guys to confess. So on to this week's confession. And this confession is really at the heart of why I started the Good Girl podcast. It's connected to why many of us are winning at life and why I believe some of us are not winning at life. So, in the spirit of being transparent, in the spirit of sharing uncomfortable truths, I'll start. Y'all feel that whisper? Oh, guys, like my face is getting flushed, right? My hands are getting kind of warm. I'm getting kind of warm. But nonetheless, here we are. So my confession is I did everything right and still lost, right? I did everything right and still lost. I did what I was supposed to do in school and relationships, at work, in the community. I even told the cashier, y'all, when she didn't ring up my $25 purse that she put in my bag, I told her, hey, you didn't ring that up. I followed the rules set by society, my school, or whoever was in charge for how girls were supposed to show up and act. Like, don't chase boys, don't be too loud, put school first. I colored inside the lines. I even followed this good girl mantra into adulthood, right? I didn't chase boys. My head stayed in the books. I didn't drink, didn't do drugs. I went to church, put my career first, right? And please understand, I'm saying this as the sum of the whole, not the individual parts, because let's be clear, Cameo had my fair share of fun and dumb things, right? Some that maybe I'll share one day, but right now they shall remain nameless or faceless or experienceless, whatever. Y'all know what I'm saying. But that's who I was for the most part. That's what I embodied. That's what I carried out through my life as a guiding principle. And I did this with the idea that these rules would get me what I wanted out of life. Basically, if I did X, if I followed these rules of what a girl was supposed to be, to do, to think, to the T, then I would avoid the pitfalls of life, like a broken heart. God forbid I'm single, a dead end career, sadness, sickness, disease, you name it. And I will get what good girls deserve. Anything I wanted, right? I attached so much to following these rules set by society, by church, by institutions, and powers that be, that this is how I have functioned, this is what I believed, and even what I affirmed. And if you haven't picked up on it yet, there's an underlying theme here that works in reverse, that if you do experience some of the pitfalls of life, a broken heart, singleness, a dead-end career, sadness, sickness, disease, whatever you want to call it, what you didn't want, you got what you deserve because you didn't what? You didn't follow the rules. And that couldn't be further from the truth, y'all. But unfortunately, when I embodied this idea of purity to achieve success, because that's what it is, purity to achieve success, that former thought was a part of the equation as well. And so what I understood, even at a young age, is that if you do not follow the rules, you typically don't get what you want. Your teachers don't like you. Then because your teachers don't like you, you get othered by students. And think about it the other way. If you do follow the rules, you got praise, accepted, you got the gold star at the end of the week, your teachers loved you, your friends and peers looked up to you. And let me be clear. I know it seems like, or it doesn't seem like I am. I'm only talking about the school environment, like high school and junior high. But please know these same rules very much apply to adulthood. If you don't follow the rules set by the powers that be, then what happens? You get outed. And these rules in adulthood often show up as dress, diction, and even the power that comes with our job titles, the jobs we hold. We use those things as guidelines, as a barometer to determine if that person is deemed good or bad. And if you follow these rules, again, you were affirmed, you were applauded, you were doing everything right. Or so I thought, right? Enters reality, right? Poor baby cameo, right? Poor baby, just trying to do what's right. But I say this, guys, because it's very harmful. It's what keeps us losing. It is what divides us. It is what makes us cast judgment on people. I think it also allows us to miss what are some true ills of society. And we look at an individual at the cause of a problem versus the system, right? This doesn't, at the same time, I'm not saying that folks should completely escape responsibility for their actions or that there aren't consequences for their actions. But we very much know the society we live in, the narrative that it pushes, and then also some of the realities. And so where my fantasy of this pure, if you lead this pure life to a T, then you are going to have rainbows and unicorns all day. Like when reality met that, I believe is when my eyes opened up. And let's be clear, my parents didn't raise me like this. I think it was more so society. When you go to school, these things are fed to us, right? Because I'm telling you, my mom, it's a couple times I know my mama laughed at me. I remember her laughing at me when I would share some things, and I'm sure her prayers got me through. Like, oh Lord Jesus, please help my child. How did we get here? But anyway, here are a couple of instances where those truths were dispelled, because they were truths for me, right? But when they were dispelled. When there was a woman on Howard's campus, and I always heard people talking about her like she was the smartest person on campus. Like she was an undergrad getting into law school, taking law school classes. Folks, she was writing people's papers. She was competing with, like, going back and forth with professors, and she was right. And then her IQ was up there. Like, these were like rumors on campus, right? And someone told me her name. I'm like, oh, I don't know who she is. I don't know who she is, baby. When I met this woman, she was nothing like what society told me to be successful like she is, in terms of having a high IQ, in terms of being able to intellectually compete to a certain extent with professors, in terms of taking law school or getting into law school as an undergrad. Like all these, she did not embody, like, and I say this, and hear me when I say this. I'm not saying that these characteristics that I'm going to list are bad. I'm saying that this is what society told me they were. Baby, this girl was loud. This girl was no nonsense. She very much stood up for herself. She didn't care what other people like. That was the spirit that she brought, right? She had a slick mouth. She wasn't necessarily nice, and I say nice. Women are taught that in order to be successful, you have to be nice. Not that you have to be smart, not that you have to be witty, but she didn't care about niceness per se. And that doesn't mean she wasn't a nice person. But when it came to the business of things, she didn't care about niceness. Baby girl wore the tightest jeans, right? Tim's one day, heels the next day, crop top. Like listen. Baby girl didn't care, right? So that was one example. Also another example is when I got passed over for a promotion on the job when I was, again, being this good girl, doing what's right and all this other stuff. And again, I want to paint a clear picture. There's nothing wrong with doing what's right, but it's what is behind that doing what's right. But anyway, I worked in TV. I worked for a local CBS affiliate, and I was a producer at the time. And as a producer, you manage reporters, right? You write the entirety of the show, and you manage reporters. Anyway, y'all, one of these reporters, like, literally lied on me, right? Told me I told him not to cover a specific story, and he didn't cover it, basically because he didn't want to or because he was late or something like that. And that's what he told our collective boss, the news director. And the boss believed him. And I'm sitting here like, no, why would I tell you not? So I say all that. And then he got promoted. So that was another example of how, quote unquote, following the rules and being good doesn't necessarily get you what you wanted, right? And those are only two examples. And that's when I really realized, as these consistent experiences begin to play out in my life, that's when I realized that truthfully playing by the rules wasn't necessarily driven by success, but rather avoiding judgment, shame, and othering. And that was for me. It wasn't for the other folks, but it was for me. Like, why are you really following these rules? It wasn't about success for me, right? It was really avoiding judgment, shame, and othering. And so I don't know if y'all really heard that, right? Because they tell us, society tells us that if you follow these rules, you're going to be successful. But what the seed that is really sown from grade school to middle school to high school to college to being on a job is, if you don't follow these rules, you're going to get ousted. You're going to get pushed out. You're not going to be a part of this community. So in order to avoid that, you continue to follow these rules. So when I say that, I realized that truthfully playing by these rules wasn't necessarily about success. Like, the heart of it wasn't about success. That may be like the leaf for the branches, but it was rather about avoiding judgment, shame, and othering. So it was at this point that I began to see that I was truly losing. And I lost because I was shape-shifting who I was to fit into this idea of a good woman instead of simply being myself. That may look like, for me, being quiet and going along just to get along instead of asking questions, instead of pushing back, whether it's on my professors, instead of pushing back when I have questions of my faith, right? I lost because I didn't listen to God, and I didn't listen to the God in me. I was more dependent on what the church said and what the church thought than what God said and what God thought, right? I remember this clear as day. I have two examples. I was sitting in church, and I had been battling, y'all, with going to church because I wasn't getting the same fulfillment that I've been getting previously. And typically what we hear in church, it's not the church, it's me, it's the individual. So I went through my process, like asking God, like, what is this? What is it, something in me? What do I need to change? Help me, Jesus, all this other stuff. And so I just kept going, kept being faithful. But I remember sitting in church, and the person was speaking, and it just seemed like everybody else was getting theirs, right? And folks, I'm gonna hold off on this. I was gonna say, and folks was swinging from the chandelier. That's another reference. I'll share that one later. But folks was they were getting theirs in church, and I'm sitting there like, what is it? And I got up, left, church was over, and one of my mentors, she stopped me before I walked out, and she was like, Cameo, it's okay. And I was like, what? And she was like, you want me to tell you what your face look like sitting in church? And I was like, yeah, whatever. And she was like, your face looks like, why am I here? I said, ooh, child. Cam, fix your face. And she said, it's okay. She said, I'm going through the same things. It's sometimes we just have these cycles, and you have to find, something new. And what was later revealed to me is that I became so dependent again. And this again, nothing against the church, but I became so dependent on the church versus depending on God that I essentially became empty. I made church my God. And that's a place where I lost, right? That's a place where I lost. I also lost because I waited to pursue some things because I thought I needed to show up perfect, whether it was in my diction, whether it was in my performance to grow my career, my calling. I waited because because I felt that I needed to be this perfect, prim, and proper, whatever it is that the world wanted in order to pursue this career. And so much so that I felt justified in criticizing others when they didn't meet these standards or my standards, right? And listen, y'all, it's okay if this is y'all. It's all right. This is what this space is for, right? It reveals the places where we are in bondage so we can move past this. And some of us still do it when we look at someone else in our line of work and we judge them and say, oh, that would never be me. She or he needs to do X, Y, and Z. All the while, we ain't done nothing. We ain't done nothing but tried to perfect our craft behind the scenes. But this person is bold enough to put themselves out there instead of what I should be doing or should have been doing, applauding someone for not allowing fear of judgment to grip them. This is where I lost. I wasn't free. I was too concerned about what other folks thought. And just a side note, there's a freedom, I think, that non-traditional students of the world have. And when I say non-traditional, like you didn't go to college, and therefore you weren't taught that there was a right way to do things. You put yourself out there and you just did it. Like you do not have this standard or this barometer of what something should look like. And I believe that is y'all's advantage, right? Y'all just go and do. But in the back of the mind of some of us that were more traditionally educated, it's like, oh no, you got to do this. You got to take this test. You got to get this certification. You got to, and again, I just want to be clear. Sometimes we do need certifications because I've seen some stuff and y'all wow. Y'all wow. But I see the dynamic, right? I see that you have no, I don't want to say you have no standards, but there is no barometer. You just like, I'm just going to get out here and do this. You don't have that thing holding you back. I also say I lost. I also know I lost because God has made creation to only respond to a certain version of myself, the real version, not this version that society again has dictated to be good, to be right, but it is the real version of myself, not the version that is dictated by rules that are set by man, but the authentic version of myself. And when I say creation, it is resources, it is people, it is open doors that is waiting for the real version of me, not this timid version, not this prepped, primed, and proper version. They want the real me. And a little asterisk right here. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for rules, right? Because being right or righteous was never intended to take us into a space of getting us what we wanted. That wasn't the purpose of rules. It was to show us our boundaries, on what we could and couldn't handle, and also show us our limited capacity as humans. Rules are not the pathway to success, y'all. Freedom is. Freedom in being who we are with all of our quirks, our flaws, and to know that we are still enough and we are worthy. That is the goal. Freedom. And this is something like I was toying with, not sharing, but kind of where to talk about it. So I'm just going to add it here at the bottom, this addendum to this entire conversation that I think a lot of us deal with, and that is very much a blanket over the character of, or how we determine someone's character and what they deserve or don't deserve in America. And it's how we are losing. And so I subscribed to this at one point as well. And it's this idea that because you are a good human being, then you deserve something. No, y'all, that's not how it works. You are supposed to be a good human being. And if we believe we deserve something because we are a good human being, what then does that say about our character? If I'm doing these actions just to get something in return, it is not because of who I am. That is the difference between performance and character. And this is very much how we operate in a lot of our spaces. Like we say, oh, you deserve this and you deserve that. According to who? Depending on your faith system. I'm not saying that you're not worthy or whatever, but this is where grace comes in. This is where God comes in. But if everything I did wrong, right? Because we like to think of ourselves as good. If everything I did wrong, bad, was shown, on a billboard, and I got what I deserved, I definitely wouldn't be in the position that I am in now, right? And that's where grace comes in. That's where God's sovereignty comes in. That's where our humanness comes in, and that's where God's divinity comes in. So I added this because I don't know if we think about that a lot, because we see it all the time. Like, you deserve this, you deserve this. Yes, you work hard and you get the payoff, but there's another side to us as humans as well. And I think in order for us to really live this free life, we need to do away with I deserve this because I'm good. Because that'll, I'm gonna tell you a story about how this idea of because I'm a good human doesn't really work well if we're trying to be the highest and best expression of ourselves, because essentially what it is, it's pride. So I got into a tiff, right? A friend of mine hurt my feelings. Essentially, I was hurt. I was initially angry. I say this all the time. Anger is a second emotion. So I was really hurt, and I was hurt because they were nice, nasty. I don't like nice, nasty. And they were very passive aggressive. And I understood that there was a bigger issue or a bigger problem that they had with me. And my thing is, be straight up with me. Tell me, like, don't play these games. Like, don't pussyfoot around the issue. That helps no one. And so I really don't like it. And so in their attempt to express themselves in that space, it was like a little dig at me, and I ain't like it. I mean, who likes a dig? And I ain't like it. And so throughout the day, I was trying to deal with it because I said, Camille, don't go back and forth, right? We want, this is what I told myself, we want the higher version of you to come out, right? And so I didn't respond. I was just real chill, real cool, but I couldn't let it go. And I was talking to God. I said, why can't I let this go? Why is it so hard for me to let this go? And I believe, and this isn't the first time, and I believe God revealed to me, like, Camille, it's your pride. Because my thought process and why I was so upset is because how dare that friend treat me like that? Because, going back to the point, because I am so good to them, right? Because I'm a good friend to you, because I would never do these things to you, because I have set the environment for you to be a good friend. How dare you do that to me? That goes back to this idea that because I'm a good human being, therefore I deserve something, right? And so there's a difference, again, between that is just who I am versus me doing something out of performance. Now, What I'm not saying is that that person shouldn't be held accountable. But what I am saying is that my role and how I felt had more to do with my pride, and I can control that. And to paint a clearer picture, when people are going through stuff, when people project, because that's what it is, people project their issues, and I think we have accepted this, right? And we say, well, it's more about you than it is about the other person. When you project your issues, when you make digs at me, when you treat me a certain way, and I think all of that is true. I think all of that is true. But who am I, right, for me to think that that part of you ceases to exist because of my presence, right? Because if I do, what then does that make me? That makes me almost godlike. That makes me a deity. That the issues that you've dealt with, right? The trauma that you are projecting, right? That those things cease to exist because I'm good to you, right? That your humanity, that who you are, just because of that makes me godlike. Like, I think God revealed it to me one time. He was like, the enemy don't care about you. The enemy don't care how nice you are. The enemy didn't care about Christ. The enemy didn't care about Jesus. So why did I think in that situation that because I was so good, I was so right, self-righteousness, pride, why did I think that? And God was like, that's your pride. I said, oh, you right. And so I say all this to say it points back to this idea that because I am a good human being, then I deserve something. And I want to be clear. I know a lot of times we struggle with self-worth, and I think this is a like cognitive dissonance. I'm not a clinician. You are exploring, or you have two opposing thoughts, because one thought is saying like, well, I don't deserve this, right? Because I'm a human and a sin and a fall and da-da-da. But then you have God's grace, that's presence. I say, yes, you do deserve this. But I think we have to put these in the rightful place, prioritize how we understand them. So I hope I'm making sense, y'all. I hope I'm making sense. I read on social media that this is a good example, and some of y'all may say ouch when I say this. But listen, I read on social media, and I'm paraphrasing, that there are so many church girls that followed the rules that are now resentful at the girls who were othered and talked about because of their sexual behavior, but are now married, that they now have what some of these church girls desired. And I think that is an example. Some of y'all like, ooh. But I think that is an example because, again, we're taught that our behavior makes us or positions us to get what we want. We're taught that if we do these things, then we should get what we deserve. But baby, I'm here to tell you that ain't the truth. That ain't the truth. We, in my mind, should do things because that's who we are, right? Not to perform for someone, because that's what, and then you get tired of performing and people fall in love with your performance and not who you really are. And it's really not a change. It's like a sheep in wolf's clothing, all these things. And so I start this confession, my confession, at the beginning of the season to challenge us on what rules we are truly following and which of them are real. And also understanding where the heart of the Good Girl podcast comes from, right? I'm about healing. I'm about being honest about who you are. I just share some stuff with y'all. I'm like, I don't want nobody to know that about me. I don't want. But if we didn't share, I think I would be doing a disservice to what I'm called to do. We perpetuate this idea that people have it all together, and that's why they are where they are at, right? That's why they are good. We perpetuate, I was talking to my homegirl, Rika, and I think this is the best example, that we think Beyonce is successful. We think Oprah is successful, and the likes are where they are because they never messed up. Because how many times do they really talk about their flaws and their faults, and where they just failed constantly? And I'm not saying that they have to do that, right? Well, not Beyonce, but Oprah grew up in a different era and a different time space. Like I feel like she had to be perfect, right, in order to be successful. But we're definitely moving into the place where we can really humanize people and do away with this purity mindset with everything and everybody, guys, because it runs so deep, right? It runs deep in our politics that we expect a pure candidate. It runs deep in when we are divided on issues that we expect issues to be pure. And I just don't think it exists. It doesn't exist in a person. It doesn't exist in any society. So that's it, y'all. That's my confession. These are my confessions. I may go see Usher in December, y'all, in Las Vegas. I gotta get some tickets, but I have a lot of other things to do, so I'm trying not to really plan too much. Anyway, I know that went on a complete tangent. Thank you so much for listening to the Good Girl Podcast. Again, please subscribe, right? Subscribe. We are on every platform that you listen to your podcast, and also leave a comment. Comments help us. Comments boost our rating and have other people listen to this. Thank you so much. Thank you for believing in the good.